Today we're going to be looking at the best CS2 crosshairs. We're going to go through the top 10 pros and look what crosshairs they are using. I'm going to go based off the HLTV rankings of the players. Then I'll throw some people in there like Donk and NiKo if they aren't in the top 10 for stats wise. But we're just going to see what these players are rocking, and then I'll put the codes down below in the description so you guys can copy them. But these are definitely the best crosshairs to use just because these guys are the top rated players. So obviously they know a little bit something about the crosshair they're using. But before we get into that, if you guys want any cool skins in your inventory like I have right here, make sure you guys check out the sponsor of this video, SkinsMonkey.
SkinsMonkey is a CS2 skins trading site and marketplace that provides an instant way to get new skins. My favorite thing about SkinsMonkey is that I can trade skins that I no longer want and trade it for a skin that is equal value. If you use code LouisCS2, you get a $5 bonus on your first trade. If you want to buy skins, you can get a 30% deposit bonus plus an extra 5% using my code. The link is down in the description.
So the number one player in 2024 so far is insani, and this is his crosshair right here. Now I switched to his res, which is 1280 by 960 stretch, which is 4:3 resolution, of course, just so we can get a better idea of what he sees with this crosshair. Now this crosshair is very popular and has been used for a long time, and we can tell why his aim is so snappy just because since it is a small crosshair, it's a lot easier to snap to the head instead of trying to spam for body shots with a lot larger and thicker crosshair. So I definitely understand why his aim is so good, and if you can get used to a crosshair like this, your aim will actually probably be a lot better just because it's a lot more snappy. But if you're used to those big crosshairs, something like this is harder to get used to. Now the next player actually isn't a high rated player on the HLTV rankings right now, and this is Donk's crosshair. This is actually the same one as insani's, and as you can see, it's literally just green. You can tell that these aimers are using these smaller crosshairs because obviously it does help them, especially someone like insani and Donk is using something like this. And when we go further down the list, you'll be able to see that these really good aimers are using smaller crosshairs. But again, this is literally the same as insani's. There's not really much to talk about this crosshair. It's literally the same thing, and he probably uses it for the same exact reasons, just because how small it is. And it's a lot easier to hit those headshots just playing at these angles right here. It's a lot easier to use a smaller crosshair, but this is the exact same one as insani's. The number 2 player right now in 2024 is Xantares, and you can probably tell by this crosshair. Xantares plays on 1024 by 768 stretched. So if you notice the little res change or the little graphical change, and I just changed it obviously just so we can see what his crosshair looks like on his screen. Now if you did watch my CS2 crosshair tutorial, you'll know that I talked about having a gap in the crosshair because some people find it easier to put the head of a player inside the gap of the crosshair instead of having a smaller crosshair just putting on their head. They find it easier to just snap to the head with this gap. So if you are someone that might be struggling with a smaller crosshair and not being able to hit those headshots, you might find it easier to use a crosshair like this even if it's a little bit smaller. But this is definitely something that you can try if you are kind of struggling hitting those headshots. This is also a good crosshair if you do want to spray, because you kind of just follow down from the top of the crosshair, which is why Zywoo used to use one that moved. So it's a lot easier to just track your spray with a bigger crosshair like this. Xantares has actually used this crosshair for a long time, so it definitely is his old reliable because he obviously hasn't switched it probably since he started playing pro. So again, if you are struggling with nailing those headshots with the smaller crosshairs, I definitely recommend what Xantares is using. Moving on to the number 3 player, we have xertioN. Now he's playing on native, which is 1920 by 1080, and this is his crosshair. Now I've seen some crosshairs similar to this. This is almost like a Stewie crosshair with the thickness 1. This is probably a size 2, but I've never seen a dark blue crosshair, so this is kind of weird to me to see. But I mean, he is playing very well obviously with this crosshair, so he definitely is comfortable with it. And this is just a good example on you need to be using the settings that you feel comfortable with and not what the pros are using. Just him using a crosshair like this clearly shows that he is using what he is comfortable with. He's not looking at insani or Donk's crosshair and saying I want to use that. So this is definitely a good crosshair to him. Now me personally, I would not use something like this, but if you are someone that enjoys a crosshair like this, obviously go for it, try it out. When I use a crosshair like this, I usually will put it on like a white color or maybe yellow or a light blue, but I've actually never used a dark blue crosshair, so maybe this is something that I need to try. But again, this is just another example on you guys need to use what you're comfortable with. So if you are struggling trying to find a crosshair color that you like, maybe you should try dark blue like xertioN. Now the 4th player is the Brazilian star insani. Now he's playing on 1280 by 1024, which is a wider stretch resolution of obviously 1280 by 960. I know I used to play on this res and I really do like it because how much more stretched it is, but this is his crosshair, just a simple thin white white crosshair. This is another good crosshair that I've seen Munacy use a lot as well. Just crosshairs like this really do help you with the headshots. I feel like seeing something like this in my brain really makes me a lot more snappy when I aim, just because of how thin it is. I can really just aim a lot better to where I am trying to aim, and it does make my aim a lot more snappy. Now, it isn't, that small. I would say it's in like the mid-range size, obviously. But if you are trying to find a crosshair to be more snappy on the head, but you don't want to use a small one like donk or Munacy, I definitely do recommend a crosshair like this. And Insani is one of the best Brazilian players right now playing for MIBR, so he definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to a crosshair. And I do think a white crosshair is very good, except if you're playing on a map like Nuke, because Nuke, obviously, it's really bright. There's a lot of white and blue on the map, so it might be hard to see. So I could see him changing this color of the crosshair. But this is one of the more common crosshairs, obviously, in the CS scene, especially if you do play a lot, or if you play at a high level. You'll see a lot of crosshairs like this that are probably light blue, green, or yellow, because I know Munacy was rocking one like this as well that was yellow. So if you are trying to find a good crosshair and you're kind of stuck, what you want to use, this is probably one of the most common crosshairs you see when playing. Sometimes they are a little bit smaller or a little bit larger, but again, if you are new to Counter-Strike or you're trying to find a crosshair that you want to use, I definitely recommend using Insani's crosshair right here. Now that we've done the top 5 players, I'm going to kind of branch out into more of the aimers and the guys that are known for having really good aim, and we're going to start with NiKo. Now, NiKo recently switched his res to 1610 stretch resolution, and he's playing on 1600 by 1024, and he's using a little plus crosshair. Now, I've had some really good success using a crosshair just like this. If you guys watch my stream, you'll know that I do rock this crosshair, and I've hit some pretty good clips with something like this. So I do find this crosshair very useful and very good, because it's almost like the Munacy crosshair, just with a smaller gap, or you can just put a dot in it, and it makes a little plus sign like this. Now, he's using more of a cyan color, which I find very good on pretty much all the maps, because it's not going to blend in on pretty much anything unless maybe you're looking kind of at the sky, but you can see it actually turns green. So this is a very good crosshair if you don't want to get lost in the map. And it's also a very good aimer crosshair that will make your aim a lot more snappy just because of how small it is. So this is definitely a good aimer crosshair. And since NiKo is known for being a star rifler and a really good aimer, obviously he knows something about good crosshairs. But again, crosshairs are all preference, and obviously he is very comfortable using a crosshair like this. But of course, I'll put this crosshair down in the description so you guys can try it. So the next player we're going to look at is Frozen. Now, Frozen is playing on native, and you can see he has a tiny small crosshair. Now, Frozen used to be on black bars until he switched over to FaZe Clan and started playing CS2. I think Rops actually convinced him to just switch to native, and he's also using Rops' crosshair, so this is also the same as Rops, just so you know. But I know Frozen was using a lot larger crosshair, and it was also green and looked pretty much just like this. But again, this is literally the same crosshair as Rops, so obviously he's maybe trying to mimic Rops' settings just a little bit, or he's just comfortable with the crosshair like this. But also to note, this is also the same as Insani's crosshair, but it's just green. And if you guys watched a little bit sooner in the video, you obviously know that I talked about how this is one of the common crosshairs, but it usually is like green, yellow, or light blue. So we can see that this crosshair is actually just very popular in the Counter-Strike scene. So like I said earlier, if you are looking for a crosshair or struggling to find one, you should definitely copy this crosshair no matter what res that you're playing on. So the next star aimer we are going to look at is Twistzz. Now, he's playing on 1280 by 960 stretched, and his crosshair is actually the same as Frozen, Rops, and Insani's. It's obviously just having a smaller gap. He's kind of rocking the little bit of the plus sign like NiKo. It's just longer and thinner. This is definitely a more of a preference crosshair, because we don't see crosshairs like this very often. But since Twistzz is so good at aiming and really grinds deathmatch and aimbots and all those sort of things, this is definitely what he's kind of pretty much came to terms with by being comfortable. He's been performing pretty decently, so this is a good crosshair for him. It may not be a good crosshair for you, because I do always talk about having a nice gap just so you can line up the head, or maybe having a nice link. If I was rocking a crosshair like this, if you guys know, Donk used to rock one just like this, but it was smaller. So this is a crosshair that I really only recommend if you feel comfortable with it, just like Exertions. But obviously, a lot of crosshairs are preference, and Twistzz just finds that he's comfortable using this crosshair. Moving on to the next crosshair, we have Zywoo's, and yes, you can see the trend does continue from Frozen to Rops to Insani. This is literally the same exact crosshair. I know Alexi B and JL also were using this crosshair, same color, same length, same everything. So if you are looking for their crosshair, you can use this one as well. But this is one of the most common CS2 and CSGO crosshairs. If you are looking for a good crosshair, even if you want to copy your favorite pro, you're probably going to find this one, but I do recommend this crosshair if you don't know which one to use. For the last crosshair, we have Rain's crosshair. Now, Rain actually plays on 1280 by 800, which is a custom resolution. So this crosshair may look a little bit different on his screen because I am on 1280 by 960 since I didn't want to set up the custom resolution. This is a pretty simple crosshair. When people usually start out playing Counter-Strike and trying to get really good at aiming, they are using a crosshair similar to this. I know I was using one just like this, but it was light blue. So this is probably another common crosshair that you might see, especially down the lower ranks if people are starting to grind Counter-Strike. But Rain is just one of those Mr. Consistent players who's been grinding and playing at the pro scene for so many years. And he's pretty much used a similar crosshair to this whole time. I know he used to use this crosshair and it was like 0.5 smaller. So if you do want to use a crosshair like that, you can as well. But I think this is one of the most newbiest friendly crosshairs ever because it has that good thickness, it has that perfect gap, and it has the perfect length. If you are starting out in Counter-Strike, you can use a crosshair like Zywoo's Frozen Rops, or you can use something like this if you are getting started out, because this will kind of start to really get you used to those smaller crosshairs like m0NESY and donk are using. But these are all the crosshairs I have for you guys. Pretty much the best CS2 players right now, and these are all their crosshairs. Some of the pros did have the same crosshairs, and I didn't want to overlap. I really want to overlap those and just show the same crosshairs, so I made sure that each one was different. But I'll put all these crosshair codes down below in the description so you guys can copy these and put them in. But if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure you guys smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for some CS2 content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.